Now recording, hopefully this works. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to keep this fairly simple. I've got a list of questions people have submitted to me. Hopefully some of you have questions as well. If there's any questions. All right, let's start this up. Does anyone have a question they'd like to start with?
Do you want us to introduce ourselves?
That could be a thing too, I suppose.
I don't know any of these people.
All right,
Well, that's efficient.
why don't you each go through and introduce yourselves then, because clearly we're all strangers.
Okay.
I'm Cullan of Innilgard. No, that's you. I'm Tim of Newton, otherwise known as Timide. And over to you.
I'm Baroness Linet of Falcons. Rest.
Aeschine of Arran, probably know me as previous sin, and purveyor of cheese.
The cheese goddess. I'm Cullan of Innilgard, also known as the dragon.
He's owning it.
Gonna have to.
Alrighty, I suppose next we can move on to some questions from the populace that I've received. If anyone has a question they'd like to bring up, please wave your hand, get my attention, that sort of thing. And then at the end of all the questions, I think a brief statement from the candidates just about what they're hoping to do and where they see themselves going, that sort of thing. And then we can wrap it up and move on to our training and then council meeting.
Yay.
Alright. Question 1. What is the one thing you would most like to achieve during your time as Baron or Baroness?
What was that one?
What is the one thing you would most like to achieve during your time as Baron or Baroness? Who would like to start?
You guys can start.
Okay. Not ruin everything. For a start. I think I may have mentioned in my letter that I think the barony is in a pretty good place at the moment. From as far as I can tell. I mean, everything may not be perfect, but I think it's pretty strong, and I would like that to continue. And at the very least, continue and get better if possible. But that's conducive on time and events happening and other events happening. So, and just keep going up in a general, non-specific way. Linet, anything?
Yeah, I think I'd like to continue all the good works that all our populace do, and I'd like to be able to help people to create their dreams, and hope that we can maintain the numbers that we have and increase them if we have the opportunity to do that. And to all have fun while we're doing it.
Yes, actually, increase of numbers is good. I mean, not to the point where we can't sustain or anything like that, but there have been, I think, a steady trickle of people coming through, which is good. And the more we get in, the better. And to be as welcoming as possible and not sort of like be some sort of scary group of weirdos that
Yeah, to be very open for people and to be very approachable, that people can come up and feel that they can chat to us, and we'll take it all on board and listen. That's it from us for that one.
Cool, thank you.
The one thing we would love to be able to do, besides obviously the obvious, growing the barony, continuing the good works that we all do, we'd like to, the one thing we'd really like to do is make our different fighting groups a more cohesive group in things like wars and festival and things like that, by bringing us all together, both the rapier, the archery and the heavies, and having a unit that goes, we're Innilgard, whether that be by creating workshops where we make tabards or sashes that show that we're Innilgard, for people to borrow to when they go somewhere, even if they're wayfaring on their own, if they don't have their own arms and they want to represent the barony, they can take this and go, we're from Innilgard, and really put us out there so we can be seen that we are doing these things. I mean, and obviously the continuing of the growth in numbers is something we would like to do, but the one thing we'd really like to do is get a bit more cohesiveness between our different fighting groups in the Greater Kingdom.
what she said.
Man, a few words.
Well,
Yes,
because
no.
we've discussed
We
things, so
had discussed it previously. I think that it's better than it used to be when I started,
stop playing.
but we need to keep it going.
That's it, like that, yes.
Yes, this is what it might be like.
Baroness and Baron, remember?
Awesome, thank you guys. For the newcomers who are joining us, I'm going through a list of questions I've received. This is being recorded audio-wise, and if you have a question, just get my attention, raise a hand, something like that. Moving on. You are all, in one way or another, associated with large active households whose members can currently make up most of the movers and shakers of the barony. Do you see any need to make a clear distinction between yourselves as Baron and Baroness and your involvement in your households? Would you consider temporarily stepping away from your households while Baron and Baroness?
I'll start with this one. Yes, we are part of a big household that does a lot of things with the meerkats, and we are known obviously around the barony and throughout the kingdom. And no, I wouldn't consider stepping back from the household and stepping away from that. I find that my household is a good support network other than my husband, and we sometimes B&Bs need that extra support to help with doing things and facilitating things for the good of the barony. I don't see a need to step back from a household or a friendship group to be Baron and Baroness. I think having those groups with you actually gives you extra support.
And you don't think it'd be a conflict of interest?
I don't see how it would be.
I don't know.
We obviously, if there was a conflict with our household, with members of the barony, then we would obviously have to step back and go, we either need to have our seneschal or some other person who's not a member of the household deal with it. But otherwise, I feel that they're a good support network for us.
Yeah, but we don't.
Okay, well, I've already spoken to our household about this, and we have made a decision that I will be not taking an active role in our household, and Lord Hugh will be the head of the household and make any decisions, and if he's not around, it'll be Finnabar who'll be making all the decisions on that. So I won't be part of my household because my household will be the barony and my champions.
I also am a member of the Meerkats. I don't quite see how involvement with that household would affect my role as Baron. However, obviously the barony would come first over any considerations to do with household, because, you know, as previously stated, if you're Baron, then the barony is your household. I understand it's a bit of a tricky one, and if I'm not entirely sure how everyone feels about, you know, large households and how they interact with the general populace. But I'm a fairly low-ranking meerkat as it happens, so I don't see that I'm sort of in a position of control with the meerkats, you know, to sort of like, you know, indulge in nepotism or anything like that. So certainly nothing like that would be going on. Yeah.
Yes.
On a related note,
Yep.
one of the pairs in either case has ties to, well, in one case a laurel, in the other case potentially a knight.
Mm-hmm.
Could we have their thoughts on the relationships there as well?
Okay, sure.
It's not related.
So that's a question regarding relationships with peerages and, you know, kind of student-mentor and personal relationships?
When I put my hand up for Baroness last time around,
Yep.
one of the questions people asked me was, you are squire to Sir Alfara of Attica. Is that going to cause either a conflict of interest or an issue of confidence, shall we say, between the squire-knight relationship, as it was in my case, and the baronial barony relationship, or potentially, for that matter, barony king versus student peer king?
All right.
That's complicated.
Now, I understand you guys all get the gist of the question.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're Baron, you're Baron, or Baroness, you're Baroness, and that's your first loyalty, has to be. So I think in that case, whether it's a knight-squire relationship or a peer or whatever, you have to put Barony first. In the interest of your populace, you can't be sort of bowing to outside pressures. I mean, that said, of course, the populace is the outside pressure, so that could be any number of things coming your way. So you are there to serve everybody, not just one specific interest, I would suggest.
Yep, as most of you know, I am protégé to Yevon and apprenticed to Master Drake. But my first fealty as Baroness would be to the Barony and the Kingdom. And I would see that those other areas as support in one way or another. That if I had questions with regards to being Baroness, they both obviously being Baron of Baronies either here and currently at St Florian's, and they would actually then be able to offer me support on being Baroness. But obviously first fealty would always be to the Barony and the Crown.
Does that answer to your satisfaction? Cool. All right, does someone have a question? Yep.
I kind of want this answered as individuals, if I may. Why do you want to be Baron or Baroness? Straight up. Anyone can start.
I'll go first.
Yep, you're fine.
I would like to serve the barony, and I would also like to serve the kingdom, and I'd like to be part of the process of being able to reward people in this barony for all their good works, and to hand out their awards and to personally recommend them to the Crown.
I think it's a group worth looking after and leading, and if there's no one else but me, I would be happy to do it, and I would like to do it, regardless of who else wants to do it. But I think I trust everybody here, and I think that it's worth doing. Basically, what you said as far as leading everything, serving the Crown. But yeah, I would like to see things continue upwards and in a good way. Yeah.
I would like to be Baroness because I think it's a natural continuation for me in the way I serve the barony. I have held officer roles, I've been seneschal, and I feel that stepping up to be Baroness is a way for me to continue to serve the barony and to take the barony further. I'm not saying we're not going further now, but I think for me, I would then be able to help people go further with what they want to do. And as Baroness, I would have some influence to help those people outside of the barony as well.
What everyone else has said sounds great. And as I have to put my 2 cents in for the same, it would be a great idea. I want to serve. It's the convenient thing at the moment. It's the first thing that's popped up that I thought I could do.
What's on your side?
I don't need his opinion.
Oh, we should all be in church.
Separate state and church.
It's a one-man cathedral.
It was the most convenient way for me to want to serve. Nothing else. I haven't been approached by any other peer. Not that I'm fussed by that, but I thought I've been doing this a while now and it's time to pay it back.
Can Cullan describe what you mean by serve?
No, sorry. I don't know what I meant by that. I just do the role that's required of me, try to bring things more cohesively together. Sorry. Just try to improve what needs improving, expanding what needs expanding, and get more people involved.
Oh dear.
Ingrid's got her hand up.
Ingrid?
I've got two questions. The first one, if you were not successful, would you continue playing in the Baron?
Yes, I would still continue.
All right.
Yes.
Having fun doing sushi. Oh yes.
The second question, as with all other groups, festival is a big focus for the SCA. Have you given any thought to reintroducing something like the Green event to give a local focus to that sort of event?
I haven't, but if it's something that the populace would like or, you know, think is a good idea, very much so. There's a lot I'm probably unaware of, like things like this, and, you know, as if I was to become Baron and people said, how about we do this? I think that's, yeah, something we could all look into. So, I mean, I see that the barony leadership is sort of responsive to what the populace wants, so and then tries to either make it happen or else explain carefully why it can't happen if that's the case. But yeah, sure.
I had thought of, I think we've both discussed having local camping events other than GSG once every 3 years and Pro Futuro once every 2 years, something a bit more regular and yearly. I didn't get to go to any brown or green events. They sort of died out just as I was starting to play. But I would be looking at wanting to do something, help people do something like that, whether it be a Find a Long Weekend that currently doesn't have anything on it, or create a weekend where we can do a camping style event like that. Finding somewhere in South Australia that's not too far away that actually allows that type of activity, particularly with archery.
Make a comment, long weekend isn't necessary. Everything will be packed up by Sunday night and you're getting home. The hard part is finding a site where there's nothing mundane, where you have fires.
Yeah. Well, that's why Green Event actually stopped, because it was becoming increasingly hard to find a ground that would accommodate us. And the last one we had to take our own portaloos because there wasn't any facilities. And nowhere allows us to do the archery side of things, so we couldn't play the war scenario that we'd like. And just the logistics, you know, became too hard to carry the amount of infrastructure that we would need, especially as we had to take the portaloos ourselves and take them back to the place. They didn't get picked up. So it would be nice to have a camping event again, but yeah, finding a time to fit in would be quite difficult, I believe.
On that subject, yeah, I've got an initial hold of a area that I think is suitable that I've spoken with Jan about briefly before festival, and really gone not much further than that. But that was something I was looking to bring up for the next.
Cool beans. I'm going to cut this train of conversation off, and that's something we can discuss at the council meeting if people want to bring forward event ideas. I think hopefully that answers your question about camping events in Innilgard. Does anyone have another question?
I have another question. It may or may not have already been asked. How do you see the role of the Baron and Baroness versus that of the roles of the seneschal and officers? Has this been asked?
Nope.
Okay, fire away.
Is that a guidance or control question?
It's how they see it. Do they see themselves as guiders, controllers?
So you mean like the
equal
interrelationships
observers?
and the interrelationship?
How do you see the relationship?
I see us as role models and figureheads, and to observe and to support our officers wherever possible. That's how I see us.
Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines as figureheads and first point of contact for a lot of people, because we'll be the ones that stand out. and then basically to be able to direct people to the relevant areas that they're after. And yeah, a good working relationship with all the officers. They're the ones that run things.
Yeah.
I see our role as obviously being the in-game heads of the group. When at events and things like people will expect us to be leading in-game, but we will also then need to have a good working relationship with our seneschal in particular and our reeve and the other officers, not to quite so much as a degree as being with seneschal and reeve, because they're the important officers that really do run our game. Having been seneschal, I can see how beneficial it is to be having a good relationship with your baron and baroness. If you don't have a good relationship with them, it can lead to problems both in and out of the game. So I would definitely be wanting to making sure we keep a good working relationship to our seneschal, our reeve, and our other officers as well.
I would agree with everything, and I would say that yeah, you're there to support them, support officers, and make sure they're happy. And if there's any problems, can you fix it for them, or find someone who can fix it, and that kind of thing. So not a control sort of point of view, but a support. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Felix, you had your hand up first.
Can you describe the health of the barrier right now, or do you think it's a healthy place?
I'd like to start.
I think it's a healthy place. I couldn't describe it as anything other than it's a healthy place. Everything needs improving.
Well, not needs improving.
Everything can be improved. Yeah.
I think the barony itself is currently in a healthy place. We've got good membership numbers and a good number of people who are out of those members who are actually playing on a regular basis. We're financially quite well off, actually probably better off than a number of other baronies around the kingdom. But you know, you can always get more people to come in. You can always be running more events with a slightly larger profit, so you can pump that money back into infrastructure for the barony. I don't think you could ever say where everything's going to be running smoothly all the time, but at this point in time, I think we are both financially and membership healthy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I've previously said that I've sort of thought that the barony is in a good place, and I would like to see that continue at the very least, to maintain at the very least, but also improve where possible, or allow people to improve, encourage improvement. Because I'm aware that as leadership, we're not controllers. It's all about everybody, really, not just the baron and baroness. So yeah, I think it's a healthy place.
Outwardly, it appears to be very healthy, but as we're not privy to the nitty-gritties of how everything works at the moment, I'm unsure as to say that we are, 100% healthy. There's always room for improvement, and hopefully, we can help improve matters if there is an issue. That's all for me.
Cool. Right.
Elena wants a question too.
Two questions related. What are your contingency plans should your other get sick or burned out? How does the cover continue when one of them isn't ready to go?
Well, I guess that's a very like you'd have to judge that situation as it arose. In my position, I would hope to be able to pick up the slack from the person, find out what the problem was, in this case Linet, what she needed, and help her out as much as possible. Find out if there's any responsibilities that she's doing or looking after, or what the problem is, and try and help with that as much as possible. And if it's a really insurmountable problem, seek help from the populace, officers and so forth to resolve that problem if need be. So probably the short answer, I'd do something. Yeah.
If a problem did arise that we couldn't fix between ourselves, I would ask one of our peers to step in while we sorted ourselves out.
If there was a problem where myself or Jason had an issue where we could no longer be Baron or Baroness, I would speak to the Seneschal and discuss the issue with how we move forward with regards to how Corpora states that works. I haven't read that section myself, but there can be issues with going on as a single Baroness when your populace has voted you in, or your Crown has picked you to be a pair. So it would be a matter of, if it was something that one of us really could not continue in the role on a permanent basis, then obviously I would have to work out what the rules were for that, whether we would then need to go to a vicarage or do this process again. That would depend, and I'd have to discuss it with the Seneschal at the time.
If what she said's great. If you're meaning if someone's sick and not there, I'm quite happy to work from a list, and she'll usually give me one. Any other problems, we have a really good support system in this barony. People like helping. We have officers that know their jobs and can help. Failing that, curl up in a corner and cry maybe.
I will be away for 21 days while I go on my holiday, because we had already booked that and it can't be changed. So it would be in Tim's hands and Jarnskeggi's hands while I was away. And then when I got back, I would resume.
3 weeks off, isn't that a bit indulgent?
No, because it's the first holiday in 32 years. So, yeah.
I think Greg had a second one in Elaine.
Yeah, just, I mean, this is such a, this was the sort of thing that were to happen. I'm not even talking about it in a permanent way, but it's a break. But, in those cases, who are your backup, your help group, or when you're in there?
I'm sorry, can you speak up a bit, please?
Who are your backup group?
Okay.
In our case, obviously, our household and our close friends within the barony would be there for us, as well as I've said before, my Laurel in Queensland, Baron Drake, are always there to offer support to us. But also our Seneschal, not just because he's a member of our household, but because he's Seneschal and we're friends, and he would be there, I would assume, to help us with do things. And, everyone here in this room would be, I'm sure, there to help support either of us, either sets of candidates, if we were B&B and something were to happen and we needed help.
Yeah. Again, officers and household, and also the advice of, for example, previous barons and baronesses. If there's a real problem and I needed advice, which I more than likely would if I was baron. I'm sure there's a lot of things I haven't even thought of, like this question, to consider. Then yeah, I would be looking for advice. I think I know from previous experience in sort of jobs and sort of leadership roles and things that it's much better to ask for help than to not. So yeah.
I would ask advice from the previous B&Bs and of our active peers if I needed advice and information, and that's where I would go. And I'd have, family support as well.
Awesome. Elena, sorry you've had your hand up for a while.
Apologies if this has already been covered. Given the difficulties in communication and the lapse of communication that has recently been highlighted by royalty, particularly in reference to the plague at the end of the festival, in what ways do you see yourselves facilitating that improved communication between all of the different groups of the kingdom that are generally considered quite enclosed and, for instance, looking at all of the peerages individually, looking at the B&Bs as a group individually, also the royal peers, the seneschals. How do you see yourselves facilitating that improved communication between all of these historically secretive groups?
I have no idea. I guess it's one relies on as much communication as one gets in, and certainly I would be as open as possible with what we're doing. If they're not communicating, then I guess I don't know if they're not communicating. So, and then you find out the hard way. So, I guess because if I would,
that's kind of what's happened,
right?
Which is why there's now a push to get more of the communication happening.
Okay, well, I would be behind communication. I think communication is essential from what I've observed, and that all sorts of problems can arise from lack of it. So, and I guess one problem for me would be that a lot of them, assuming we were to become Baron and Baroness, a lot of them wouldn't know who I am, for example, because I don't have that many, I guess, interstate connections with a lot of people. I mean, some of them do, but that would be a process of saying hello, here I am, and going from there. But I guess that's a LOCAC-wide problem that maybe LOCAC needs to look at as a whole. But yeah.
Maybe introducing ourselves would be a first start to as many groups as we can. Getting on as many lists as we can to be able to communicate with them. And on the home front, talking to everybody in the barony as much as possible on what they want and what they would like from us and from the barony.
And I guess also we would rely on people telling us if there's a communication problem with X, Y or Z, that we can then go, oh, okay, let's see if we can look at that and sort it out if possible.
I think having a good working relationship with the peers of our group to then give, hopefully then communicate with us what's happening at peerage level for whatever peerage they're in is a good start for that part of the inter-kingdom, within the kingdom's relationships. Obviously being part of whatever B&B groups there are, whether it be an email list and keeping informed of what's happening around the kingdom with their B&Bs. With other groups, relying on your officers to tell you stuff, making sure you have a good communication with your local officers so they can actually then give you information on what's happening in wider area around the country, or even just wider area around your group with the college. Making sure that I can have a relationship with the seneschal of the college and find out what's going on with that, even just locally. I think, but obviously peerage groups are secretive by nature. That's the way they're supposed to be within their workings. But having a relationship with the peers of your area means that you can get an idea of how things are moving, and they can give you information on how things are moving around the kingdom as well.
Basically talking to the people involved, communicating with them, talking to the officers and the seneschals, finding out if there's anything wrong with them. Same with all the other peerages. We've got a reasonable spread in the barony. We know most of the people in the barony. It just requires talking to them and seeing if they've just found any problems, and then working to a solution. I can't help it.
It's hard not to.
Cool.
My question?
Yep.
How long do each of the couples plan on being B&B for? What sort of length of term are you looking at?
Well, minimum 2 years, so probably for that, and after that I don't know.
We'll see how it goes, how everyone if everyone's happy and if we're happy.
It's
Yeah.
not an officership
And that's so-
like Seneschal where there is a boundary.
No.
No.
I mean, if, for example, we were to become Baron and Baroness, in 2 years' time, everyone might be going, get rid of those two, geez,
Yeah.
especially that guy, far out.
Yeah.
So I think with that in mind, it would be, from my point of view, wise to set like the minimum limit at the start and then see how things are going. Yeah.
Assuming that the barony was happy with you,
Yeah.
you consider going.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You know,
Yes.
if I was in a position to do so, which is, unless something terrible happens, more than likely, so.
Yes, you can never tell what's going to happen.
No.
We have sort of discussed it. We're thinking 3 to 4 years. We'd like it to be a bit longer term, not necessarily as long as some other terms have been, but we would like this term to be a bit longer. And so we would look at 3 to 4 years and then asking the populace what they want, whether they want us to continue for any longer, whether it's time for a change, whether we've decided that we just can't do it anymore after that.
Or whether everyone's sick of us.
Yeah. So, but we were looking at 3 to...
We won't even tell you.
Oh, that's a
We're looking at
communication problem right there.
We're looking at 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
Cool. Alan, I believe you had a question?
Yeah, I do. It's traditional in the past that the Baron and Baroness stamp their own personality in a group, one way or another, whether it's by leading them in a different direction, pointing at a particular focus, be it rapier, heavy, archery, whatever. The group grows by diversity. You can't just sort of focus on one people, don't be thought of and follow that. You have to add something of your own passion to it to make the group enlarge in different ways. What focus do you think you can bring to the group that can make us grow, make us more excited, make us want to keep you as your allies?
I quite like the idea of showmanship and sort of like, because I first came to the society through seeing a demo up at the Med Fair, like a lot of people do. Not all people, but a few at least. And I think that's one great thing with the society is that whole sort of spectacle of medieval splendour, or Renaissance splendour. And I think with that in mind, that's what I would like to see really sort of come to life, is the theatrical side. I think back in the old days, to me it seemed a bit grungy. Yeah, well, exactly. And you're sort of expecting Excalibur, and you get I don't know. Rattan. Well, parts of Excalibur. Well, anyway, that's a whole other thing. But yeah. So I think that would be something. So spectacle as much as we can to the outside world. And I'm aware also that we're not about the outside world. We're about the society, and that's an important thing as well. But I think that benefits the inner world as well as the outer one. Yeah. So, I mean, as you know, I cross 2 fields with heavy and rapier, which I'd like to do them both equally, but it's often hard time-wise. But I'm also aware of archery being a field that is kind of in a bit of a slump, perhaps, if that isn't a dangerous word to use, I don't know. So I'd like to see that come up as much as possible. And I know that the college are looking at, I think I saw one of Amy's posts, that they're looking at doing more practices, and we're sort of, and within the Baronet itself, we're looking at pushing it forward. And I know I have friends that would possibly be interested in joining, because that's, they don't necessarily want to be hit in the head. But they like the idea of being part of it. So that would be a really good thing to see come up, if possible. So yeah, and bigger hats.
I have an interest, in multiple things. I don't have one particular interest that I focus on, but I would like to focus on the youth combat groups starting up and getting that going, because I think that's the way to go for the future, to get younger people started. and have their parents come along and get them involved in things while they're waiting. And I like to see the pomp and ceremony and all the regalia and everything, the nice banners, and I'd like to have ongoing arts and sciences projects where everybody in the group works on something. So that's what I would like to do.
I don't think we have one thing that we bring to the role. Obviously, I'm not a combatant due to injury. I have tried it, but Jason has now has been doing heavy and now does rapier and has a feel for that side of things. I would really like to bring words. I don't know. I think I just want to bring people in. I want to have more inclusiveness of everyone. I want to actually draw people in to be together in the group. And then, it's hard to put into words that I don't want us to have single little groups. Over many years, we've seen that, you know, sometimes you'll have a really dominance in one specific group, whether it be heavy, rapier, A&S, whatever. And I'd like us to see bring to this a more blended and even amount of time to each of those different things, where I'd like to really bring A&S to the fore, but also rapier and heavy and archery into the group, and to make us, I suppose, develop our personality in the role over time. Does that answer the question?
She's set it off. Yeah. Jeez. I can't add anything to that. It's all been said. I like it all. I want more focus. I think, like, when I started, I noticed it seemed really clicky between A&S and rapier and all the other, the heavies and whatnot. That's improved. I want it to improve more. I think that we need, it gives a better front as a barony if everyone's behind whatever's on at the time, whether it's a heavy tournament or a rapier tournament or a war or just a feast. Yeah, it's all been said. I can't add to that, I'm sorry.
Cool.
And personalities will come as we work out what we need.
Greg?
I just want to follow up on that. What do you think your style of ruling, for a better word, will be? What flavour, what are we going to see when we show up to an event and see you two sitting there? How are we going to interact with that? Is that just a follow-up?
After we've settled in, or right from the start?
Right from the start. How do you want to be as B&B?
Goodwill. You know, I think everything runs on goodwill, and I'd probably try. Well, I would sort of run things, I suppose, like I do a temporary relief class, which is I walk into a situation and I don't try and sort of smash everybody over the head with authority. I sort of try and get the picture of the hall and then ask nicely and then sort of if they tell me to get stuff, look disappointed. You know, so no, I think goodwill is the way to do it. So active goodwill to make people want to do things rather than feel they have to do things. So people like to feel appreciated, and I think that's actually one thing I've noticed with this group, as opposed to some other groups, is that it's a rewarding group to be in. When you get something in court or whatever and people recognise what you've done, that you think, yeah, cool, awesome, people do appreciate my existence, and that's great. And I think that that really helps the barony run. You know, I've been in other groups, specifically amateur theatre group, where for 40 years you can be involved and they barely know you're there, and it's like, really? I've done heaps of stuff, but it's not acknowledged. So I know that it's not all about I need to be rewarded or I'm going to sulk. It's not like that. But I think people, if they realise that their efforts are appreciated, will step up, generally speaking. So yeah, goodwill.
Same as what Tim said, but I would also be respectful of everybody in the group, and I hope they would respect me as well, and I would also be a very compassionate person towards everybody.
I don't see it as ruling. I want to be a leader. I want to lead the barony and help others to do things within the barony. So I think my style wouldn't be a ruler as such, but someone who leads and helps people to do their things, or helps them to, basically forges forward and asks people to come with me on the journey.
To be approachable. To not feel that there has to be a special reason to come up to speak to us at events. When I started, I was scared of the B&B. I didn't want to go up. I didn't feel that they were that approachable. It got better as I got to know people. Look, everything's been well and truly mentioned. But yeah, approachability, friendliness, make it easier for people to come up to speak to us and find out what they're interested in.
Nobody said megalomaniac dictator yet. So
I want to invade Glenelg.
You've got to get the role first, and then you do that. You can't let people know in advance.
Velvet glove over the iron fist.
All right, folks, we'll keep going on. Eva?
So, in the interest of fostering help, which is part of the role of B&B, I assume, and this is brainstorming, but how do you envision trying to help the barony out of the current slump in feasting numbers?
That's an interesting question. Yeah.
I think we need to find out what the reasons are, whether it's a monetary thing, a time thing, or whether it was just the wrong time to run an event because there were too many mundane birthday parties or family get-togethers or whatever. We need to find out the reason why it's actually happening.
I think the first one would be advertising. We need to encourage people who want to run events to give a decent time frame and get the word out there that this event's happening, encourage people to book early, and all of those things. The things we've been doing already, but try to do them more effectively, whether it be getting that advertising happening both on the email lists, in the irregular, Facebook, word of mouth, all of those things, and reminding people that this event is coming up on this date. And, if you want to have feasts, then you need to book and come along, because otherwise, if they keep failing, we can't have them. And it costs the barony money to plan a feast, and then for hardly anyone to book, and we have to cancel. We still have to pay things like hall fees.
It's also very disheartening for all the stewards and everybody who's put in all the hard work when you have to cancel. Very disheartening.
It is a really interesting thing, and I think we probably a lot of meetings, or a meeting at least, to find out what, as you say, the problems are.
All right. Ingrid?
Not quite sure how to phrase this one. This year's been around for 50 years, and this group's been around for more than 30 as a group. When it started, we've seen footage and photos of people making an attempt at medieval garb and fighting and everything else and whatever they had available. 50 years on, a lot of that's changed. We have a lot more available options, we have a lot more resources, we have a lot more materials that we can get. The internet is a wonderful thing. I've seen over the last, say, 5-10 years, a mighty move towards authenticity and the need to be authentic over having fun and making an attempt. How do you see that in this current climate of the SCA? Is fun gone? Do we all now have to be costume Nazis? Do we all have to be as authentic as possible? Well, yeah.
Within the barony or Lockhart World?
Just the whole SCA, it's everywhere.
I think we need to encourage new people in particular that the best line in the spiel about the SCA is an attempt. And we should then be making sure that those people know that if they've gone to some effort to make themselves something, to buy themselves something for their first event, that we don't put them down for it. If they use Panay Velvet, then you go up and speak to them about their garb and say, hey, you know, look, great attempt. Did you want some help with costuming in the future? We, you know, offer help to people, bring them in to the group, and don't go, oh, damn, you used Panay Velvet, or you've used that thing, or geez, that's not really in our time period, that's more Victorian, whatever. Yeah. That's it. Bring people in and go, that's a great attempt. How did, you know, what did you do? You know, where, you know, what are you interested in? And then help them, facilitate with them the ability to then go further and help them over time to get a wardrobe together that they really enjoy.
Tell them not to listen to the costume Nazis.
Yeah.
They're just jealous.
Costume's only one part of it.
Yeah.
I'm talking about much broader.
Yes. But it first and foremost, for new people particularly, it is an attempt. And that's I use that line now as hospitaller, as in when I was seneschal, that it is an attempt. Particularly when you're new and you don't know anyone, you don't want people going up to you going, oh, that's not right, or oh, you should do that, or whatever. You know, you need to make people feel included in the group before you tell them off.
Before you correct. I still think there's fun too. I mean, I haven't noticed a major drop in that, at least not here. And that's what matters.
I mean, if people can put up with my obsession with rivets on things, I think, you know, there's still... And feathers. Rivets and feathers. Yeah.
Rivet the feather to the hat.
I think it's I think the group it's fairly, I suppose, self-evident that it's a medieval group, and that also, but also the fact that the era the SCA covers is a pretty wide range of things, you know, from ancient Greece through to, you know, 1599 or whatever. So, I haven't noticed any sort of local problem with anyone wanting to be Sauron or anything like that, at least not yet. I think there's been one new guy who sort of was doing some armour designs and sort of thought, would this work? And I'm sort of thinking, it's a little bit fantasy-esque, it's more this. So, but I mean, he was sort of like interested in the design sort of process. So at that stage at least, because he hadn't actually rocked up with anything, you can sort of go, oh, it's probably more, you know, look at this direction rather than that direction. And, you know, there's lots of references and so forth to help you with that. So, but yeah, I think fun. Principally, I mean, as the old phrase goes, it's a recreation group, not a recreation group. So that's flexible, from what I've seen anyway.
Yeah, you know, first timers, it's a first attempt at things is acceptable. That's what states in the rules, and for the rest of it, that's a personal choice as to how a person wants to present themselves, whether they want to wear totally period and authentic things, and whatever makes them comfortable and happy to be able to play. So it's personal.
And leading by example too is a really good way of sort of showing that direction without actually saying to people, this is how it should be, because once people start to see the sort of garb that is in the barony, and they go, oh, I see, right, that can be a good way of showing direction.
Cool.
Even? Just leading on from that though, so the 25-year veterans that are still wearing Panay Velvet tunics, are we offended? Do we speak to them? Do you let them lie?
25 years.
They need to be pulled aside and spoken to.
No, they don't.
I would not be able to. It's
No,
their
you know what,
choice,
this one
and we don't have a right to tell them what they can
Because-
and cannot wear.
Exactly. You can be,
That
you
way.
know, it's an attempt no matter how long you've been playing. It doesn't say it's an attempt for your first 12 months. It's an attempt for no matter how long you've been playing. You would think by that point someone probably has gone, hey, do you want us to help you make something that's in a bit more period fabric even? And if they don't, then that's their choice.
Look, I draw the line at having Tigger printed on it, okay?
I think that's all that word.
All right, pushing forward, people. Greg again.
The chances are that you come to hear a lot more gossip than you. And so my question is, when you hear gossip about some members who may not appreciate being talked about, whether or not they even know that they're being talked about, how do you deal with the information? What do you do in those situations?
I guess it would depend on, you know,
On the gossip.
on what that information was. Like, it was something that was serious or required action, well, you know, then again, how serious, what sort of action. But in general gossip, I think loose lips sink ships, as they say. So discretion is the best part of valor and other things. It as you say, it would be a position where you would hear all manner of things. But I think it would be, you know, steel trap would be the best way to handle that.
Gossip should be stopped. It's not healthy.
If it's
if it's something really personal, it should be kept between the people who it's about, and if they've come to us, it doesn't go any further.
It's a very case-by-case basis, I
Yeah.
think too. I mean, you know.
I think with gossip as and scoba that basically if people are saying, you know, I heard this about such and such, or I heard that about such and such, you sort of maybe just say to them, look, you know, I don't think gossip's really going to be helpful. Like, if that's the truth and you heard this and you don't like it, maybe you need to approach that person. But we as a B&B shouldn't be continuing the gossip any gossip that goes around. And people who spread gossip with us, we would then need to go, well, look, you know, it's not really appropriate to be saying that about that person, whether it be true or not. You know, you don't know what it is. But if someone says something about someone else and it's not nice or it's defamatory, then we need to then go, look, that's not appropriate, and actually put a stop to it. And if you've got a problem with someone, then the first rule with the SCA is if you have a problem with someone, you go speak to that person. And if you need to have someone there with you, then we can do that, or the seneschal can do that. But basically not spreading rumours and crap around about people, and trying to, where we can, go, look, that's not appropriate behaviour.
Don't gossip. That's all I can say. If people are trying to spread rumours and that, or gossip and say, like, you know, somebody's got fat feet or something stupid, either ignore it, or if it's really serious, find the people involved and take them aside and find out what's really going on, instead of taking it second, third hand from somebody that heard something from somebody else who said something to someone else. It's gossip, I don't know. Try not to do it.
I'm going to interrupt you because I still have a whole bunch here that I need to get to, and I'd like to mix it up a little. What is your opinion on the formation of hamlets and cantons?
It's a matter for seneschals.
A matter for the group to decide on that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not aware of anything currently happening within this barony with people wanting to break away. Are there? No? No?
To be clear, it's not so much a breakaway. It happens. It's a subset group within the group.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that.
I think that's a matter for a meeting rather than, you know, if I was to Baron and say no, but well, yes, but yeah, that would be a group discussion thing. I mean, personally, I think the barony is small enough that doesn't need to happen. But if it's people like that are removed in outlying areas that can't get here, well, that might be a good reason to consider something like that. Just from practicality point of view, and there's no reason to say no because they're, there's a power thing. So, yeah, like if they're up in, I don't know, where's a far place? Beulah. Yeah. No, you must take a plane to fighting training, otherwise you can't do it. Yeah. So.
My opinion on hamlets and cantons is they can work well depending on where they are. If you have quite large groups like Rowaney, they are very large, and so they have smaller groups that are part of their bigger group. They don't take away from the bigger group, but they do add something to it with a group of people who are much closer together. As others have said, I don't see Innilgard being that big for a number of years yet. We don't really have those outlying areas. It's quite small in geography. People can come in. I think hamlets are more likely in the future in Innilgard compared to cantons. They're really just a household that has offices. But at the moment, I wouldn't have thought that we would have something that would require a hamlet or a canton. But in the future, that may be something that happens depending on where groups form. We might get a number of people who are really interested from Victor Harbour. It's not far away, it's hugely far away, but it's not close enough to be able to come regularly, and that's the sort of idea I would see for hamlets.
If it's, like Michelle said, King said, if it's from places far away, that's fine. At the moment, there aren't many households that would be big enough to do a hamlet. Those that are still quite happy working in the barony, as far as I'm aware.
I think the other thing with households, most of the households we have here aren't situated in one postcodal type area. And that's how hamlets and cantons work. It has to be certain postcodes. You can't have a household that's spread over northern suburbs, eastern suburbs, western suburbs forming a hamlet, because that's not feasible. It's something that would be a group of people in one postcode area, a similar postcodal area.
If we have enough people to do one, I don't have a problem with that. That's all I have to say. Don't see a problem.
All right. Who has a question? Felix, did you have a question?
So, during a time as B&B, you'll have some very, very stressful times. Some of that stress will be completely and only caused by the person sitting next to you. How do you plan to deal with that?
I've been married to her for 12 years now. It's all sorted.
You do as you're told.
I do as I'm told.
Since when?
Doing it as you're told in a baronial position, is that sorting it, or is it in fact highlighting that there's a bigger issue? I know it was a joke, but...
No, sorry. We haven't had a situation for either of us yet in the past 20 odd years that we've had a cause to chew each other's head off bad enough that we're not going to speak to each other. We usually talk and sort it out, even with all the weird looks we get from her. This is what I see. She might have something different to say. I think if I can't talk to her about it, I will talk to the seneschal about it and see if he comes up with an idea. Usually though, we manage to struggle through any of our stress-related issues.
Yeah, look, I think, although we live in the same house and we've been together for 22 years now, I think sometimes we will have disagreements on how things should work, but that's where we can sort of take a step back from each other and go, hang on, and basically just think about it and then come back to it. That's usually how things work. If we have a disagreement, we'll go, you know what, let's not argue, because that does nothing, it just makes people even more angry. and you can't get your point across. And step back and go, just stop, think about it for a bit, and then come back to the situation, whatever it is. Usually that will work. One of us will usually go, oh, you know what, you're probably right, or it'll be, you know, we can compromise on this. You know, what about if we did this instead? And it might be something that was completely different to what we both had in mind in the first place. So I think being able to take a step back from each other also works. We don't go at it hammer and tong and just argue to the point of not seeing reason. We do actually stop and go, no, and we just take a break from that and come back to it later.
Well, it'll be different for us because we're not together. So we're not. I guess it's you know, there won't be that sort of couple relationship, so it'll have to be sort of like, you know, very, I suppose, a few meetings, discuss things and try and resolve them from there. I don't know, do you have any thoughts? Or?
I think because we aren't a couple, and at the end of the day we go home to our own homes, and that gives us a time to reflect on things and put things into a better perspective, to be able to come back and discuss things openly in mature, grown-up fashion. And because we are both mature and had a lot of life experiences, I think we would be quite able to communicate our displeasure if we upset each other.
I mean, I think there's strengths and weaknesses in both situations. So I mean, it's not one is better than the other necessarily, but you know, well, we'll find out, I guess. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Cool. Alan?
I've actually got a question for Cullan.
Yes.
As you know, the Bush Girls at the Baronial Guard, therefore they'll be pretty much under your direct control. Wow. Yeah, you're not going to require them to wear tartan trousers?
No. That's why they have tabos. They don't have to dress like me. I'm for them to wear what they like. Ideally, we need to make sure they will have their tabos, or if not, make some more. Other than that, no, I'm not going to be I dress like this, you have to do the same type person. No. I'd rather be an individual and anyone look different.
If no one else has their hand up, I'll keep going from my list of submitted questions. I have to get through them all. Going through that. What role do you think the college should have with the barony and the barony with the college?
I think the barony should be supportive of the college. It is another facet of getting newer, younger members coming through. And the college's role within the barony should be similar to what it is now. But we should be working together to be one cohesive group. They are members of the barony, and some of our members are members of the college, whether they're at university or not. They might be affiliates in one way or another. I think by having a strong barony should have a strong college, and we should be there to help them be a strong college if they require our help with that.
I would agree with that. I think the college at the moment seems to be very strong, and there's a lot of members that are in both and show up here and also show up in the college. And I know that the college have their regular training sessions down on the Bar Smith lawns, and both rapier and heavy, and archery now. So which is good. And yeah, it does seem like a very good place for recruitment of new members, and people at university are vulnerable to being sucked into this lifestyle. So I think that's good. So I mean, if any of that changed for any reason, I guess that would be something to consider then. But at the moment, I think they're to be encouraged as much as possible. Maybe some of their musical choices need to be examined, but other than that, yeah, good.
I like to think the college is a younger sibling of the barony, that can stand on its own if need be, but has the support of the barony in worst case scenarios. If they're struggling, we're there to support them. What are the words? Yeah, no, that's about as far as I can go about it. They are a younger brother. Don't always, or sister, don't always like them, but they're part of us one way or the other.
You scrap with them, but let anybody else touch
Exactly.
them outside of the fact of
That's
Innilgard.
But we can give them grief, but no one else can.
Is that for responses?
I agree with everything that's been said by everyone. We're in a strong position with the college at the moment, and I think it'd be nice to keep it that way.
Yes?
Touching briefly on the subject, because a little bit to do with the college after a long period of Beulah, those guys. And yeah, on the subject of the bringing the word of blood to the Baron in a way that you really don't get from anywhere else. They already know what they're about. They already have some formed idea of what they want to do if they come to the Baron themselves. What are both of the candidates' views on sponsoring people who come in who perhaps are a little bit less moulded, so to speak? At the moment, one of the new guys, Tom, the younger, I've sort of got hold of him to sort of give him a little bit of direction. He's got some ideas and stuff, but he also needs support in the long view rather than trying to say, what are your views on people actively sponsoring people, not from a household point of view, but they've come in that to fostering rather than letting them float in, as has happened, because it happened to me a long time ago, actually promoting people where somebody goes, okay, he wants to do rapier. So somebody with some standard sponsors him and brings him in and actively supports that person, rather than just letting them drift into training and drift around because it's happening. It's, you can either say it's a casual way of doing things, or it's just letting them do whatever they want. I think probably needs to be a little bit more if you can building numbers.
I think that's a good idea, and I think it's very interesting. Yes, you thought of well done. Yeah, and I think you're right. I know it can feel a little bit like you're sort of just drifting in and drifting out, and I think that's cool, I guess, if that's how it suits you. But I think it's good to have a support network, whether it's a sort of a really structured thing or a more casual thing, because I mean, you know, that may even threaten some people, like they feel, oh God, you know, I'm being adopted by somebody. So, but I think that should be there, that you make contact with them at least every week and say, how you going? What do you want to do? Well, here's something you can do, and let's look at this. Technique training is, I think, a really good thing. Both, you know.
I have none, so I wouldn't go that far. I'm just talking about.
Yeah, but that kind of like initial.
Fueling their enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And
Giving them something that they feel they've learned each week and can take away, and rather than just sticking them in armour or a mask or whatever and, you know, poking holes in them. So, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Steering someone in the right direction, finding a buddy person that you can put them with that has similar expectations and ideas and what they want works well if, you know, you can get the information out of the people and others are willing to do that. But
there's more than enough brain space within this barony to do anything for anyone.
Yeah.
It's just harnessing it sometimes.
Yeah. And sometimes we all get too caught up in our own things and that to actually notice some of those things. So it's nice that it's brought to our attention.
I think the idea of having a more formalised process for some people who need that Some people are just confident. They come in, they're confident to talk to people. There are obviously others who aren't. And knowing who would be able to help them is something that B&B and should then know. So knowing that, say, William or Alwyn is happy to take someone who's interested in rapier and go, this is sort of what we do, and talk about it, and maybe bring them in if that's what they're up to. Or for heavy, Claudia or David, or even Tim. So, people we know are able to talk to people about what it is they're interested in. Not everyone who's been a member for years is good at talking about what they do. And knowing the people who are, means that you can help direct a new person to that person. And they may not be the person who can then train them and sponsor them, as you say, but they can help them and lead them in the right direction.
We have mechanisms for training.
Yeah. Yes. And so, and the same for ANS. You might get someone in here who loves to sew, and being able to give them, get them speaking to someone who is also suitably loves costuming and sewing and making clothes. That, and for other ANS things as well, we would need to keep an eye on who likes doing stuff. Talk to our populace about what they like doing and what they're willing to do. They may not be willing to talk to people because it may not be their thing, but there are other people who are more than willing to go, I love this thing and I love helping people do this thing. And so directing newcomers, or even not so newcomers, to those people is something that I think that B&B should be willing to do and know how to do. But I wouldn't be able to, as a non-combatant particularly, I wouldn't be able to say, we need to do this formal training process. That was something I would leave up to, say, the heavy combatants, because they know how to know that stuff. That's what they do. It's not something that I know how to do. What I know how to do is direct people to someone who can help them.
Yeah, just to say, not real good at teaching people, but I know who is, and I can direct you to that person. Works really well for me. But basically just keeping more eyes open, and for the people that are just drifting around, and try to get them a bit more involved or into what they want to do, instead of waiting for them to approach them and go, how you going? What do you want to do? Well, this person over here is really good at that. We'll get you to meet them. Take it from there.
Be able to know we're still recording. Cool. Felix?
So, after that question, you made me think about something. What would you do if those people in that situation that you would normally refer people to, what if they're tired? What if they're not playing? What if they already have 10 students? What do you do then?
I'll find somebody else, ask them if they know somebody else that can do the job as well, and go, alright, well, they're busy, we'll go to the next person. There are more than enough in each area that we can go, instead of always dumping them in yours and Eva's laps, we can go, well, these other heavies also do.
Before I offend anyone, this has happened many times in the past, where it has come to this situation that no one has found someone else. It has been relied on us, and then when our last help, people have not done it. So, you're the last person in the line. What happens if those 2-3 people you were relying on aren't there all of a sudden? What do you do then? You can't find anyone else, there's no one else.
Well, I would, if that was the case, I would help them myself, I do both, as you know, heavy and rapiers, so depending on who it was and what their need was, I would try and help them if there was nobody else to do it. But, again, sort of an ad hoc kind of situation, I guess. But, it's an interesting one because of, I can't speak for rapier because I tend to sort of rock up to rapier and, fence people and then leave. So I don't know what, sort of fostering processes are already in place there. But I think that a formal kind of like weekly thing on a Sunday of, say, even if it's just half an hour of, say, technique drill with a Pell, or just, basic footwork or something like that, for newbies would be a really good thing. But again, I know that it can be hard to sort of make someone commit to that, or if it's. But yeah, it's worth looking at. I think to sort of really, I guess, give new people and older, intermediates and anyone really that sort of sense that this is a structured sport. There are techniques and things that you need to learn and do. Otherwise, you'll hurt yourself or someone else. I think it's an important thing to look at. But as far as running out of people to help, that's a knotty one. And I guess that as a baron or baroness, that's where ultimately, if there's no one to do it, then it's your job, if possible. Yeah, unless you've got some incredibly important meeting, or at least if everything's in a hole and there's no one to help them, at least explain to them and apologise that that's the situation, so that they don't go away going, nobody cares. I think that's the important thing, that they all understand that we're aware of their existence, we want to help them, and that they will, it will continue. Yeah, they're not abandoned.
I have a lot of resources available to myself because I have them, and if I was able to, I would avail those people to my resources and try and help them find what they were after and help them in any way I could that way. I have some basic knowledge of armour and the combat side of things, so if I was able to assist them in that, I would be comfortable in that. But yes, I would delegate to someone else if I could, but if no one was available, I would take it on board myself.
I think that, sorry, just remembering the question. Okay, making sure I actually answer it. I think there is enough people here on a weekly basis that even if the usual suspects aren't around, that there is someone who can help a newer person with something they're interested in. They may have come specifically for heavy, but they more than likely are going to have some other interests we can help them with if there is no heavy person here who can or wants to help them. I'd like to think that if there were heavies here, they would train, authorised heavies here, they would want to help out. But if there's not, we can talk to the person about the SCA, about what their interests are, and about where they can get help with things, and bring them into contact with other facets of the SCA as well, and explain that this week these certain people aren't here, or this wasn't on for whatever reason, and bring them into other aspects of the SCA as well. If it was, say, costuming and there was no one here who could sew, then we could still talk to them about the SCA and bring them in and give them more information about us and what we do, even if we can't specifically help them with exactly what they came in for that particular day.
Like what everyone else has said, if the people that we wanted to, like if someone wanted to do heavy, my go-to is both Felix and me, because they're our peers. If they're not here or too busy, we have plenty of other authorised heavies that are quite willing to help. Same with rapier. We have more than enough people willing to help people. It's just a matter of finding someone who's available at the time. I mean, if your first choice wasn't there, well, we work through the list until I get to me. And usually I'll be at the bottom of those lists, because that's just how I am. But
I think the other thing is as well, as B&B, we would need to know who would like to, who is willing to take on a role of talking to people on any particular week. If we know that these people are happy to talk to people and they're here, that's great. And these people aren't happy to talk to people. So, if we know that someone's going, I'm not good at that and I don't want to do it, well, you're not going to take people to them, are you? I mean, that's just common sense. But if you've got a group of people and you say, all right, we've got those heavies over there, okay, I know that person and that person, whoever they are, whether it be Tibble or Fagin or you guys or whatever, I know that I can see that they're not doing too much at the moment, and they have told me they're happy to bring people in and talk to them, then that's who you go to. And I know that predominantly the heavies, and predominantly most of the more experienced rapier combatants are happy to talk to people It doesn't have to be just the peers. Although peers are great and they know their thing, it doesn't have to be just peers. It can be anyone who's willing to talk to people about what they do and they're knowledgeable in what it is they're doing.
Cool. Anyone have a hand up? Yarn the list. Shouldn't be too much more, hopefully. Covered that. What powers do you think the Baron and Baroness should have?
Oh, phenomenal cosmic powers.
Weather control.
Invisibility. No, not invisibility. What powers? Well, the power to inspire. Yeah, I think that's pretty cheesy, but that's I guess the main. It's leadership. It's not bossing people around. It's being able to see where the holes are, I suppose, and help to correct them. For example, in this recent, the question Felix raised about people not being able to find help that have just rocked up, being able to see that and hopefully cover that. And similar things, being able to find out where the problems are and then helping overcome them, or helping people to overcome them. And not to sort of think that everything, that you have to do everything yourself, because otherwise you'll go mad, but it's helping organise, I think, is the real power. Organise and inspire and
to be an inspiration.
Be a sexy figurehead. Yeah.
To look good.
To look good.
I didn't write that question, but I kind of think they were asking what, megalomaniacal what you're allowed to do and get away with.
Oh, I see.
Can you tell the seneschal what to do, or can the seneschal tell you what to do?
In game, the B&B can tell the seneschal what to do, and out of game, the seneschal's job is the president.
And the definition can be interesting.
Yeah.
It's a misconception, so I just need to interrupt that it is not absolutely in-game seneschal has power. B&B has power in-game, seneschal has power outside game. That's not true. That's a misconception.
But it is a perception that a lot of people have.
It's a misconception. I just needed to make sure everyone understands that.
Cosmic superpower, I would like to have the power to talk to people about whatever it is they want to talk about and not be tongue-tied.
Just the power to be able to talk to people who are going to do
I'd like to have the power of persuasion, to be able to subtly ask people to do something that they normally would not think about doing because it's a bit daunting, and support them in doing something that they've never thought that they could do before.
I guess ultimately it's an amateur group in the fact that none of us are paid. When someone says no, you can't actually order their head off or anything like that. So persuasion I think is a in lieu of supreme executive power. Persuasion is a good one to have. Yeah.
Cool. Anyone have a hand up? Greg.
Direct question to this end, just reference. We've done pretty well in the last few years. There's been quite a few elevations here, and there are still people getting there and getting close. If you find, or if you at least suspect, because the peerages may not tell you themselves, if you suspect somebody is getting close to being worthy of elevation, but they may have a few obstacles in their way. This person would be great, but what, if anything, do you do about that? How much do you do anything?
I would try to find out what the obstacles are and see if they can't be smoothed out or handled flat or whatever.
I think if we could see someone was getting close to whatever peerage, well, in our opinion was getting close, but we saw that they had something in their way, something that we thought maybe that's what it is, we would help them to overcome that. It may be something they know about. It may be something they don't know about. It may be something trivial, and we just, point out in a roundabout way. Like, you can't necessarily go, you're not a peer because you're not doing this thing, or you do that thing. But
Or unicorn horns don't match the peerage.
But helping sometimes maybe in a roundabout way, or asking other peers to go, look, this is our opinion. Not sure what you think, but how would we go about this to help that person further their path to peerage if that's what they're after? Like, in the case of, say, rapier, and we've got someone who's brilliant, they teach, they play, whatever, but for some reason they're just not at that point yet. We can speak to the Masters of Defence and go, look, this is how we see this person. What can we help them to get them over the line?
Be the grease. Basically, if there's something sticking, we'll be the grease to smooth it.
Isn't that one of the roles of B&B to actually help a person achieve those goals and those awards? So it would be remiss of us not to speak with them and help them through that and overcome whatever little thing it is that's holding them back. I think that is a crucial role.
Yeah. Again, as Cullan said, it's like find out what the obstacles actually are, and and resolve whatever obstacle that is if possible. But I guess also, I don't know if you contact the peerage and sort of consult them, or whether they guard those sort of secrets fairly jealously and say, yeah, I would imagine so. I guess ultimately it rests with them, and if they're not telling you that some perhaps needs to fix something to be considered, well then you'd have to be extremely discreet and help them if you could without letting them know you were helping them, if that makes sense. But it would be a very ad hoc kind of thing. Like, I'm trying to think what an obstacle might be. Yeah, in a particular thing. So how I would solve that would depend on what it was, I think.
Sort of leads to another question which maybe the peers could actually answer. What are the possible obstacles that you see other upcoming candidates face that the Barons could in their role?
I see none. It's their journey individually as a peer. They can't make themselves, they're not peer.
I think that if you want to ask the peers that, we should have a discussion at a later time, because it's getting towards 21.
Yeah, I'd rather stick to questions to the candidates this time. If you want to talk to candidates or, among yourselves afterwards on other topics, sure. Does anyone have a hand up for a question? Cool. Covered a lot of this. And to be fair, I'm going to skip some of this because a lot of it has been covered. What is your position about the possible forming of a southern principality comprising South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania? Do you see any benefit in it? Do you see any benefit in the groups in those states working together as a united region, even if not a principality?
I think
you got another hour?
Yeah.
Quickly.
I think groups working together, whether they be in a formalised extra group or not, I think we should be working with our other baronies, whether they be in our region or even outside of our supposed region, is something that we should always be aspiring to do, to help grow our barony and help the kingdom grow. Personally, I don't see where a southern principality would necessarily help our barony. I think it's another layer of governing that would require offices that need to be filled, and we don't currently have enough offices. Well, I say we have enough. We have a hard time having people apply for offices we currently have empty, whether it be barony or kingdom, without adding another layer of extra officers inside that. That is my personal view on an extra principality for the southern region. I think we need to start having, I suppose, encouraging people to apply for other offices in our own group. As you've seen with some things, that sometimes it's the same people applying for the same offices around and around in a circle. And if we're doing that here, how do we expect to then have people who want to fill principality offices? I mean, we should be working with the other groups. I think doing other things like GSG with the other groups is a great idea. It fosters friendships and cooperation, but I don't think we need to be a principality to do that.
What you said. No, yes, we all for goodwill among baronies. I don't see the point of a principality. I like being a kingdom. I think it's more fun.
We wouldn't be out of the kingdom.
Yeah, just I think we do need better goodwill between us and the other baronies working together. GSG is a good example of that. I think we should have a few more things like that, though. Maybe making an effort to turn up to some of theirs even.
I'm with these guys. I personally, it's a new idea to me. I hadn't heard of it until recently, and I sort of think, well, I too like being part of the Kingdom of Lockax, so I don't quite see how, forming something like this would, what advantage it would give to everybody. But yeah, so I would probably not be interested in pursuing that.
My personal thing is, in this point in time within the Kingdom of Lockhart, that it is not necessary to have a southern principality, but by all means we need to work closely with the other baronies within Lockhart that are close to us and continue to support them as I hope that they would support us. That's all.
Cool. Anyone have a hand up for a question? Nope. Alright, I'm going to skip a couple. There's only a couple here that are specifically addressed to people that I'd like to get out of the way, and then I think we're done. So, just making notations so I can find notes later. For Linet and Tim, actually no, we've covered that, sorry. That's about communications as not a couple. This one's for Linet specifically. You have the perhaps undeserved reputation of seeing people on black and white terms and not being willing to revise a bad opinion of someone regardless of their later behaviour. Is this something you feel the need to address?
Well, that's right out there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's the question as it was submitted to me.
Yes, I do see things in black and white most of the time, but I'm willing to talk to a person and listen to what they have to say on a matter, and I'm the very first to apologise if I've been wrong in a judgment, and I don't hold grudges at all, and I can work with people on all bases if they don't see eye to eye with me and I don't see eye to eye with them.
Thank you.
That was pretty close to personal and I think very close to the price.
I'd like to ask that same question to Michelle.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. The same question to you about seeing people in black and white terms and not being willing to revise a bad opinion of someone, regardless of their later behaviour. Is this something you feel the need to address?
Obviously, someone feels the need for us to address it. I haven't actually thought of myself as having a black and white opinion of people, but if I did have a thought on someone that I later found to be inaccurate or I was wrong, I'd like to feel that I was big enough to then go and speak to that person and apologise for that behaviour and for that opinion of them. And if anyone does need to speak to me about stuff like that, please come and talk to me. Sorry, I'm not really sure how to answer that question.
Cullan, You are known as the Silent for a reason. How do you plan to address this with regards to holding court and being the spokesman for the barony?
With a lot of difficulty. A lot of the court will be probably relying on Aeschine and Jarnskeggi and court heralds. But other than that, it's just something I have to struggle through. Experience is the only thing that's going to get me through it. I haven't done a lot of public speaking previously, which probably shows. I just have to deal. There's nothing I can do. I will be relying heavily on the seneschal and heralds and the lovely wife for most of it. Anyone that's got any tips and advice is always welcome. Line starts out. No.
I will. I'll talk to you later.
Also on that, I have actually spoken to someone else who is had problems with public speaking when they became Baron, and they actually did a public speaking course, and it was something they've given me information on as well, that that might be events that we can look at of doing as well.
And final question is for you, Aeschine. You work hours that are not always conducive to attending SCA events and practices. Do you think this will be a drawback to being Baroness?
I don't think it'll be a drawback to being Baroness. Yes, I'm a shift worker. I work afternoons, evenings, overnights and weekends. Many people work horrible shifts within the barony and have still completed their roles to the best of their ability, but that's why we go up as a pair. So if I can't go to an event and there needs to be a court, Cullan can go to the event and hold court. He has heralds that will help him. That is also why we looked at public speaking courses and the like for him, because he will need to be able to do these things at least occasionally without having me there to prompt him and push him in the back and go do it. But that's the whole point behind having a public speaking course, and also having support from you guys and whichever herald's on board for that shift, for that day.
I apologise now for the herald.
Just a quick follow-up. With your shift work, is it likely that you're going to be able to predict what events you're going to be able to attend, or is it sometimes a short notice thing?
No, I'm on a 12-week roster. It starts on the 16th of this month. Oh no. That I do try to arrange things so that I can be at events. If it means I've got plenty of annual leave. If it means I take an annual leave day, then that's not a problem either, as long as I get plenty of notice for events.
So it's not going to be a surprise. It's just
No. If there's an event on, I will not be taking on a shift that I wasn't already doing.
Cool. Does anyone have any further questions before we wrap this up? Nope. Cool. Thank you all for coming. Apologies.
A comment only.
Yep.
From listening to all the questions, I think we expect our B&B to be godlike. And while that has, some of our B&Bs have been close to God, it's not something we expect of you and you can write.
B&Bs maybe not be.
Yeah, absolutely.